So welcome to the podcast. Just before we get into it, a couple of quick housekeeping things. You'll notice the name of this podcast has changed to the Reality Check podcast. This is because basically Apple didn't like the word shit in the title, as in how to get your shit together. So I've had to change the title back to the Reality Check podcast. But it's going to be the same content in terms of short talks on mental health, motivation, philosophy, politics, that sort of stuff. The same content, just a different name. And the second thing I want to suggest is for those of you that are followers of me on Skillshare, the video courses that I put out, I've had my three most recent courses pulled because they were going against community guidelines. The first two were self-defense courses, and the third one was a solo fitness course. And basically, the self-defense ones goes against their violence community guidelines, even though it's a self-defense and even though they have a martial arts tag. So that's understandable that they pulled that. And the third one was a solo fitness, as in how to exercise on your own and make it fun. I'm fighting that one in the sense that it seems a bit ridiculous to not allow. They basically told me that they're not allowing any sort of fitness content as the lessons during this time. And to me, that seems counterintuitive considering everyone's at home bored with nothing to do and wanting to exercise, and a lot of people rely on gyms and personal trainers and groups to exercise. But now that we don't have access to that, it'd be good to have that knowledge. So I've got the 3 courses recorded, and I've got plans for a few more. So at the moment, I've got the self-defense courses up on YouTube, and I'll put a link down below. I haven't uploaded the personal fitness course, but I might look for a new home, either another video course company for those or some other solution to be able to get the content out there to you. But the self-defense courses at least are up on YouTube, and I'll think about what to do with the first exercise course, because I was planning on doing a bunch more, like not just how to make it fun, but different ways to exercise different parts of your body, and, focusing on like different sort of plans that you could do, a whole variety of stuff that you could go down the fitness path. So it might mean that I publish it down a different way. I'm not sure. Either way, check out the self-defense courses on YouTube, and if you want to look at all the other courses I've got on Skillshare, you can get 2 months free access to all of those courses and everything else via my link, and you can cancel anytime. So I'm finding that a lot of people, my numbers are just skyrocketing at the moment of views because everyone's at home with nothing to do. So yeah, head over to Skillshare, check out the courses that I've got online if you want to learn how to make a morning routine, how to meditate, how to start lucid dreaming, all the variety of stuff. And if you've read or you've listened to How to Get Your Shit Together, the book, basically these courses go in depth. And the reason I like Skillshare, which is a shame that they're not letting me put everything else up there, but I like it because you can access it for free. And if you've been following me for a while, you know that I believe that information should be accessible for free, but it enables me, when you watch, to get a bit of a kickback, but you'd have access to it for free. And then if you like the content, that's on Skillshare to keep you as a customer. Either way, free access. With all that in mind, let's get into the topic of what I wanted to discuss today. Basically, I wanted to reframe this whole lockdown coronavirus thing as a society-wide collective trauma. And in the sense that things are being imposed upon us that we can't control. Laws are being changed, liberties are being taken away for our safety, and it's causing us to be restricted. We're not having full access to the food and the utilities that we like. Our activities are being restricted or banned or blocked. People's livelihoods are being devastated, right? It's a massive impact that's happening around the globe all at once. So we're all in this together, but rather than just looking at it as what it is, I wanted to sort of reframe it in the trauma response. We are all going through a collective trauma. This is something that we've never experienced before. But if we look at it from a trauma perspective, we start to get an idea of why people are acting and doing what they're doing. Just to give a few examples, I've seen people on social media, both my followers and friends and a bunch of people, just, for lack of a better expression, going a little bit crazy. They're posting, going down, conspiratorial rabbit holes, or worrying about civil liberties being taken away, or complaining about all of these things, or posting stuff that to them seems like sarcasm, or to them seems like a joke, but everyone's jumping on them and attacking them, right? People are just not sure how to respond. When I look at the posts that people are doing, part of me goes, oh, how dare you? Oh, that's ridiculous. And I really want to sort of get into them. But then I step back and go, okay, my response to them is part of this trauma response. Their post initially is a part of this trauma response. So let's break this down. When something traumatic happens, we go into a different mental state. It's this survival mental state. It's this trying to understand why this is happening, what's happening, and we respond differently. Some people go to humor, some people fight back, some people withdraw. But regardless of the individual's response, we do know that they will have a response. We're all facing something new, and it's not likely to go away anytime soon. So we're afraid, we're unsure, we're confused, and there's different bits of information. We don't know where it's going to land. We're in this state of flux. And from that state of flux, we're going to be saying and talking and doing things that we might not necessarily do in normal life. So I've seen people's personalities change, their online presence, their online personalities, and in person as well. People are just changing in response to this trauma. The words and the actions that they're doing aren't to their normal, it's against their normal personality. It's different to what they would usually be doing. And I'm sure you're seeing this in your personal life and online. I've seen people that I know make a comment online and then have their Facebook friends just attack them. And either the initial comment was joking, or it was out of sorts, or it was in bad taste. But in a normal time, it seems like the people that would read it would be more forgiving. They wouldn't jump down the person's throat. They would recognize it, or they might do a DM and be like, hey, what's up, buddy? But now it seems everyone's tense. Everyone's worried. Everyone's anxious. Everyone's responding to trauma. So when they see this person saying or doing something that's a little bit odd or a little bit confusing or a little bit against their values, they attack them. Then that person responds back and it becomes this argument. But I can't help but thinking that if it was normal time, this whole thing wouldn't be happening. That initial comment might not have happened. And if it did, the responses back might not have happened as, vehemently angry. There's a lot of tension. So what does this mean that I'm doing? Well, I'm sort of tampering my responses. I see a lot of things now that I'm like, I wouldn't usually comment on, but people are just going a bit crazy. And it's like, oh, I just want to get involved and quote unquote correct them. And then I'm like, no, that response, that what they're saying is probably part of this trauma response, and my response to them is part of the trauma response. So I hold back. Now, there is some suggestion that, conversation is good in the sense that you've got this view that may or may not be right, and we have this dialogue and this conversation, and then we come to a mutual understanding. Now, ideally, that's what happens, right? Ideally, we can have this reasoned discussion and we come to a conclusion. The problem with the online medium is that if I post something and 10 people see that, now it becomes this multifaceted 10-person argument in which everyone's responding to everyone. It becomes this muddled, confusing mess, devolving into insults and blocking. I'm all for having the conversation. I'm all for having a nuanced conversation. But the problem with text-based communication online is, like I said, multiple people, but also you can't convey tone. I've seen so many people called out for saying something or, making a comment or joking, and, it's in, quote unquote bad taste. But if they had have delivered it in person, it might have got a chuckle or a laugh, but you can't convey tone or sarcasm through text-based communication. You just can't. And you can't communicate in real time. So if I say something offensive and you're reading that and it pops up 2 hours later and you're like, oh, how dare you? And you start responding back to me, misinterpreting my, quote unquote joke or comment or my back end reasoning, it becomes this delayed conversation with less tools. Okay, we have less tools to communicate when we're only using text-based communication. This is why Twitter is an absolute shitstorm. It is terrible. You go on there and you comment, and then there's just this stream of people commenting to everyone, and it's a mess. Add to that the heightened general tension that we're in, and it makes sense why everyone is struggling. If you see someone saying or doing something online that you disagree with, or in general, in person, even beyond the coronavirus stuff, just in general life, I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. I try to assume that I'm wrong, in the sense that, let's say someone says something that's questionable, and I'm not sure, are they joking, are they not? I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Is this person insulting me or not insulting me? If I can't tell, I'll just generally assume the best. And what that happens is that, in general for me, given my past, given all of the stuff that's happened, I've got this way of thinking that I'm a victim. it's part of the complex post-traumatic stress disorder diagnosis, the BPD, whatever, right? I feel like people are attacking me. But because I know that I'm self-aware enough of my own diagnosis to know that, if there's any ambiguity, I assume it's me misinterpreting. Now, does that mean that I can continuously, constantly misinterpret things? Maybe. Does it mean that I could dig myself a hole? Maybe. I tend to look at it as a long-term trend, though. In the moment, I'll assume that it's me, and then over the long term, I'll correct. Now, if I'm always finding that I'm, quote, misinterpreting someone, and someone's always seeming to attack me, but I'm putting it back on me, and that's happening over and over and over again, I'll distance myself from that person, right? Because either I'm wrong and they are attacking me, or I'm just not quite gelling with that person. Either way, we separate. So let's apply this concept back to what's happening now. I go online, I see a questionable comment, something that seems like ridiculously conspiratorial. The government's out to get us, or it's the coronavirus was man-made, or, this is a precursor to this, or look at this, the coronavirus is a cover for something, whatever, some ridiculous conspiratorial thing. Or someone saying, something that's, in bad taste, talking about, someone, making a bad taste about people dying, or, I don't know, like a bad joke. Or any number of other iterations of this. I'll step back and go, okay, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe I'm misinterpreting what they're saying. Maybe they've got a back-end reason for this. Maybe something else. And if it really does still bother me, I will message them directly. I'll go say, hey, how you doing? This is a bit concerning. What's up? Not in an attacky way, because I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking. I can't presume to know. The only way I can is if we have this dialogue. If I go, this seems like this, and I just attack back, it doesn't even solve the problem, right? Because they're going to just feel attacked. What happens when someone feels attacked, right? They get arc up, they get defensive, and they lash out back at you. And online, people have their supporters. So let's say you arc up at someone else is now defending that first person for you, and it just becomes this yelling match. This isn't going to be resolved. It might, feel good, quote unquote, in the moment, but it doesn't actually fix the problem. It doesn't actually address it. If you think someone's being racist and you yell at them and say, you're racist. Okay, what does that do? It doesn't really do anything. It just makes them dig in. It makes you an enemy. Rather than attacking the person, maybe getting to the bottom of it with a calm, collected, controlled discussion, looking at the nuance. Okay, why did you say that comment? Oh, you think coronavirus started from China. Okay, well, is that true? Let's look into it. Okay, even if that's the case, does that mean that Chinese person is a carrier of coronavirus? Does that mean that all Asians are like that? Does it mean, let's break it down and work out if the person actually is racist, if they're misinformed, or if I'm misinterpreting something. Depending on the answer that we come to, we can conclude a whole variety of things, right? I've assumed a lot of stuff, and then upon discussion, I've worked out that I was wrong. If I attacked the person, they attack me back, we argue, nothing happens, we don't grow. I wish I could say this to everyone, which is why I'm saying it on the podcast here and just hoping that it gets through, is that if we all just step back and take a breath and detach and just not be so quick to attack and yell and judge and just realize our own mental states, we are compromised. We are all compromised. Society's compromised. There's no wonder that we're getting into all these arguments, and if you're forced into quarantine, or you're at home and you're self-isolating and you're with your family, you don't have that same release valve. You can't do your sport or your exercise. You don't have the club that you go to, whatever your self-care is out of the home. You're even more built up and tense, and you're yelling at your family. It's going to get crazy. More and more people are going to be inebriating themselves. It's just going to get shocking. I can't help but push back and suggest we need to be as self-aware of the situation as possible. An analogy of this I like to use is drinking. If you've been drinking, right, if you're literally drinking some alcohol or smoking marijuana or taking drugs or anything, right, part of you knows that you are inebriating yourself, right? And depending on the drug, it will have different effects. But if you're drinking, you know that certain things are going to change, right? Part of you knows I'm getting drunk right now. So you make allowances for that. You might think to yourself, oh, I'm drunk, I'm going to not drive. Oh, I've taken some mushrooms, these trippy, or acid, right? The psychedelics that I'm seeing aren't really there. It's an impact of the drug. Part of you knows that you're inebriating yourself, right? I knew someone, years ago, like 10, 15 years ago, that used to be heavily into psychedelics. And when he took psychedelics, he lost the ability to remember that he'd taken it. And that would cause him to have some bad trips. Some really nice ones, but also some bad ones. So what he would do was write acid on his arm or mushrooms on his arm, right? The idea being that when he was inebriated, he would see it and go, and it would remind him. I.e., he was planning for a future state and taking action to prevent it. If you know that you drink and you drink so much and you want to drive, right? Before you have what you're drinking, go, I'm drinking today, I'm going to give my keys to someone. Preempting the idea that you're going to drink and drive. So let's apply this analogy to us now. We know we're in a state of trauma. We know we're unsure. We know that we're struggling with it. We're anxious, that we're agitated, that we're angry, right? We know that this is happening. Let's take some preventative steps when we're interacting with people. Step back, give people the benefit of the doubt, and just be a bit more collective and understanding of our own mental states. If I see myself getting angry, I check into myself. I don't attack the other person, at least not initially, right? My default is to go, okay, what's happening in my mind? Why am I feeling so overwhelmed? What is causing this aggression? What's causing these heightened emotions? I step back and look. Now, if I step back and look and I'm like, yeah, it's because this guy's like about to physically assault me, then my responsible might be, I'm going to protect myself with physical actions. But if I check into myself and go, why am I so angry? And I go, okay, it's because I've been cooped up at home for ages and I can't exercise, right? My regular routine is out. I had an argument with my missus. I am inebriated, whatever it is, right? If I look back and determine that it's on me, then my anger is not warranted to be projected outwards. The hard part of all of this is to do it in the moment. In the moment when you get angry, it's very easy for me to say this from a detached perspective, calm right now, and go, oh, hey, when you're angry, stop, think about it. It's an act of practice. You have to practice this because it's a hard battle. But if you just go, I'm feeling something, just take a mental step back. This is why I value meditation so much. It gives you the ability you're here and your thoughts are here and you see them going past. Now, when you're angry, upset, the thoughts are super close and they're like, it feels like you are your thoughts. But the more you meditate, the more you step back, the more ability you get to detach from them. This isn't to say I don't get angry or pulled by emotion or all that sort of stuff. I do. And it's a constant battle to address that, right? But you can very much take the actions to improve your ability and to your chances to step back from it. Because, like, if we look at the alcohol analogy, right? There's a real problem here in the sense that when you're drinking, when you're inebriating yourself, when you're smoking marijuana, whatever you're doing, the thing that is judging, your attention is itself getting drunk. So there's a risk here. There's a risk that, the more you drink, the less you can judge your own drunkenness because the thing judging the drunkenness is itself drunk. This is why you think you're far less drunk than what you are. I've known people to be pulled over for drink driving and they're like, I'm sober, but then they do the breath scan and they're way over. It's because the thing judging the drunkenness is drunk. The thing judging your anger, the thing judging your reaction to these people posting online, to your friends, is itself impacted. We are going through a trauma response. This is unlike anything we've faced. I see a couple of memes online with people talking about how some people with, anxiety or other mental issues are actually coping better than the average person. And I think it's because we've already got the coping skills in place to deal with big changing events. We've already got the self-care in place, the structures, the way, the self-therapy, the psychologists and the psychiatrists. We've got, our world has been turned upside down before. If you've had a history of past trauma, if you've dealt with mental illness and issues and all of that sort of stuff, it hasn't happened on this global scale before, but you've dealt with this mental tumult, this inner issues, as well as external uncertainty. So you're not facing this impact is new, but it's similar enough to the other things that your inner coping skills can help you to manage. Whereas people that have had general mental health their whole life might be looking at this going, oh my God, what the hell do I do now? I'm stuck with my mind. I'm trapped at home. This is a massive change. I'm fearing this. And they're discovering this rumination, anxiety, depression off the bat. And then they're responding with, these comments, this anger, these weird statements. So let's just step back and be kind and realize we're all struggling. We're all going through a trauma response. None of us knows how this is going to resolve. We're all sort of in the midst of it. And beyond all of these mental impacts, some of us know people who are dying, right? People are losing their jobs. Like, we are being legitimately impacted. So we're all stressed. We're all in a heightened state. If you were to talk to someone who'd just been in a car crash, right? As in, they get in a car crash, they're physically fine, they hop out, and you're talking to them, right? You couldn't talk to them like I'm talking to you now. You would know that because of the trauma they just went through, they're mentally compromised. Yeah? If you spoke to someone and you discovered that every night their father beats them, right? You would know that that person is compromised compared to what they would be if they weren't in that situation, if their home life was better. Because they're in this constant state of trauma, yeah? Same thing is if someone's broken their leg, yeah, they're in pain, physical pain. This is a physical analogy. Trying to talk to them about in a regular conversation is going to be very hard, if not impossible, because they're in pain, right? So let's all consider that we're all dealing with low-level trauma that isn't going to go away for quite a long time. It would be a terrible, terrible loss to lose people close to us in our lives because we misinterpreted and acted out of anger. It'd be a terrible loss to withdraw even more, online than we have to. Okay, like we've got access to technology where we can talk and have voice calls and communicate and share and all of this sort of stuff. Let's use it to our advantage now. I'm very much hypocritical with this, the online revolution and social media. I clearly post and push out a lot of content, right? And I use it as a way to connect and chat and talk and, earn an income and all of this sort of stuff. But I also see its negative impacts that, there's this fear cycle that can happen and, the 24-hour news and the echo chambers and all of that sort of stuff that I've talked about. But right now, if you're at home and, you're on your own or, you're with your family, but you used to have a massive social life, use the technology and let's just be a little bit more forgiving. Let's just be a little bit more caring to people that are going through what we're all going through. We're in a state of trauma, we're in a state of compromise, and we're struggling. If we can just hold on to that mindset going, okay, I'm compromised, they're compromised, let's have a little bit of lenience here, yeah? I want to suggest that people, back to what I said at the start with the Skillshare courses, I'm a massive advocate of writing therapy. And the reason I'm bringing this up now is that I know personally my psychologist has cancelled all appointments, so I've been left in the lurch a bit. But thankfully, like I said, I've got access to self-care routines that help me in my own personal way. And one of the best ones that I've found is writing therapy. So I'm going to put a link down below to my writing therapy course on Skillshare. You can click it, you can access it for free, like I said. But the idea of this writing therapy is that it's basically speaking, getting it out there, putting the words on the page, or even just talking is itself therapeutic because you're processing your thoughts. If you're all up in your brain ruminating, if you're all up in there thinking and going, oh, you come out with these outbursts that might not be the most helpful. But if you write stuff down, if you talk about it, if you say it out loud, it helps. So I use writing therapy as a way to process my thoughts. This can be projected in multiple ways: journaling, in writing out a narrative, in doing poetry. I've written my first book under the influence was an act of writing therapy, talking about my traumatic past with my drug addict, past with my father and all that sort of stuff. I did another book called Words on a Page, which is basically just poetry. And it was me sort of deconstructing my mental state. So the reason I'm bringing all of this up is that I wrote a poem about my inner reactions and what I'm seeing the reactions of other people to the coronavirus pandemic. I called it Pandemic. I'll put the link down below. And it's basically me expressing my inner thoughts, my feelings in a poem form. And I decided to play around with the structure a bit. I went 4 words, 3 words, 2 words, 1 word, all of those rhyming. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 4, 4, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. So playing with the word structure, as well as telling a story, as well as keeping the rhyming structure going. So check it out. I'll put the link down to that poem as well. The reason I want to say this is like I had these feelings about it, and not just mine, what I'm seeing. So I'm sort of like mirroring the world's feelings. But the act of getting it onto the page, of writing it, and of tweaking it, of trying to make it fit into the confines of the 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4 structure, helped me to process it, made me play with it. And by the end of it, The poem was created, and I felt a lot better. Didn't fix anything in the world, but it fixed my inner world, right? The other thing about all of this is, like, I share everything I'm doing. I'm quite an open book, obviously. But you don't have to be. The page is great. The page listens. You write down, you can burn it, you can throw it out, you can look at it, you can do a whole bunch of other stuff. So I must encourage you to check out the Skillshare course on writing therapy, because I go through the process of what I do, a few different processes, along with examples. And I think that given this time, it'd be good to start. You've got a pen, you've got some paper, just start writing and start feeling better. If you check out that course and you want some more information about it, or you want to talk to me about it, connect with me, message me on social, whatever, and just be like, hey, this is what I've done, or this is how I'm going with this. What do you think? We can talk about the method that I use. I love it. And given the current world situation, it's good for us to all have tools. So like I said, in summary, yeah, let's just recognize that we're in a collective trauma state. Let's be a little bit more lenient, and let's move towards a self-care and that writing therapy approach. Check it out, guys.